He's crying in his coffee.
That's not.
He did, I saw him last night.
Was he crying?
Well,
Oh,
I'm
what
just-
did you do,
I'm
Chris?
just kidding. We
Figuratively
were all
speaking,
at John Bowder's house last night and we were all very unhappy.
Yeah.
We got very drunk.
Chris,
I did.
condolences.
Thank you.
It's a shame.
But I want you to
You got
know
my
it's
vote.
okay, because
But
on
you
the
didn't
national
drive
level,
home.
I'm very happy as a Republican, so that.
Nora, I saw you
Yeah,
at
just like-
at the cinema. Did you see Citizen 4?
Wasn't that fabulous?
Fabulous. I was walking out behind you and I didn't want to.
You should-
Yeah,
it's
it
good.
was
You
fabulous.
don't want me to fall over.
Yeah, I think that's right.
No
It was
surprise.
fabulous.
Citizen
Citizen
4,
Four.
about, what's
Edward
his name?
Snowden.
Yeah,
By
how was that?
Laura Patras. It's
Very well
quite,
done
it's
documentary.
very well done. It's very intelligently done. It's really good. It's worth it.
He's a hero.
And Chris needs some chocolate, so don't hoard him down there.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Sorry.
See that they're like nice little leaves here.
Jeff, the bureau was so blue.
Oh, that was very
They're all the same, aren't they? Just-
They were left, they were grabbed.
Well,
Right.
because
So let's go
I
through.
really see that there was
They were the ones who wanted to come.
But they're really good.
Represented, so.
They have Sunday brunch now?
Yeah, they opened it at 12, which is a little late.
Oh, there you go.
There he is.
For lunch, it was 11 or something. Yeah, Rob, warm. You all need today.
Especially
What
for
they
him,
need
well,
is a big.
You'll be able to access the,
Yeah, it's all ready for you. How do you?
I have my new,
How are they doing in general with that?
fine, you know, the first store,
soft across the street, should be here in a second.
you know, I think that, they have it on less.
They have other good
No, I know, but
that's common.
So
So you didn't lose any.
Yeah.
Losing money.
Didn't lose money?
And the little bar
What was,
around the
I haven't seen that.
Well,
How is
It
the
was
vote? How is the
good
vote?
for the discussion that day, you know, so it's told me to have a lot of things there.
No, but they're good.
Do it.
You know,
How many
I think
how
I
many
wish
votes
just wish
was
more
cast?
people would
You
have
know,
gone to
you know
the
what?
debates.
Spaces can be cursed, you know, somebody who every year.
one in
Very, very low, very sad.
Carl,
You know, he said something that there should be a bare minimum, there should be, you know, there should be a minimum, seriously, that you have to do it.
You gotta blame Charlie.
That's drastic.
And he can't talk with his mouth.
So you get a low number, and if you have to have a ballot passed by somebody, you get the minority then that votes it in, because the others just not, that's the right to do. It's so stupid.
I know.
You know, but, I mean,
I've never figured out what it was college, so I'm still, I'm working on it.
neither can anybody else, so,
You
you know,
ready?
it's.
Troy, you ready?
But I will say, some more.
We're
All
ready.
right, guys, you ready?
I'm alive and breathing.
Are
So
we ready
this,
down
Emeryville Economic Development Advisory Committee. Sorry. This Emeryville Economic Development Advisory Committee on November 5th, 2014 is called order at 12:04. Michelle, can you call roll? Oh, sorry. Chocolate delay.
Andrew,
Here.
Ken,
Here.
Bob,
Here.
Kevin, Phil,
Here.
John, Krishna,
Here?
Stephen,
Here.
Chris,
Here?
Bill,
Here.
Jeff,
Here.
and Mary Lou is excused, Lauren,
Here.
and Councilmember Davis. Here.
What about Judy?
She called us. Yeah. She's not here.
Pardon?
No.
Oh.
Michelle, I don't know if some people, if they have to John Gooding, unless he can be excused. He told me yesterday he was going to be here.
Oh, he did not
So if he
communicate
can
that.
be excused, he'd appreciate that.
All right, any public comment?
I would like to make one comment quickly at the beginning of the meeting. I move that we direct Councilmember Davis to tell the city clerk office to please wind that clock, the official council clock back 1 hour to have the official time correct.
Oh my gosh, yeah, the meeting's finished. I move the meeting be adjourned.
Pass that along.
Delegate.
Great delegation. All right.
We want to have maximum process.
That's right.
Maximum.
That's the official city council time clock.
City property. All right, so information, sorry.
We're having some minor technical difficulties at the moment.
Okay.
Did we do the
Oh,
minutes for the last meeting?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank
We
you.
might as well approve them.
Oh, yes.
Has everyone looked at the minutes from last week?
I move that the minutes of the last meeting be approved.
I second.
All right, move in second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
All right, so water.
I apologize, I have two for lunch, so I
Well, they're
apologize.
tuning up the presentation.
It does smell a little strong, so
I won't include that in the minutes.
thank you.
But it's on the tape, this way.
So, let's see, let's try, I'm hoping to get the presentation going. The city manager asked about the financing district, just to be moved to later in the meeting when she'll be attending later. And the economic development strategy, and how we should start talking about that yet, because we'll never get to the next presentation if we start talking about it. But in the meantime, did everybody, I didn't make extra copies of the agenda just because it was so large this time. But did everybody get a copy of I mean, just the economic development strategy? Bigger?
Oh, I did not take one of those.
It is.
Better on everybody. Did you need a copy of the agenda?
I have it, thank you.
Karen, before we did it, Charlie?
Well, it's trying to read the DVD drive. It's not the DVD.
Should automatically pop up that every time.
I emailed it to you directly.
So, where is it? Oh, you stuck it in the back of the...
Send it directly.
Oh, instead of the thing? Oh, we are playing.
Well, it doesn't seem to be picked up. And she wanted to know how this applies for now. So, I sent her this thing.
You might enjoy that.
Yeah. Got through election day?
Oh, yeah.
Try again.
Depends on your.
I'm not old enough to be on.
Well,
I was on it when I was 50.
But no, I didn't.
They could use some of my younger friends.
I want to make one comment. I think in the future, when we cancel meetings, we had that conversation before we canceled the actual meeting. Like, would this behoove us just go ahead, those of us since it's on our calendar, to go ahead and meet and do things that are pending anyway and have a conversation? Does it always have to be a single person there?
I think part of the real issue was the staff has decided they wanted to wait and see who the new council people were. And kind of.
But that doesn't have an effect on the committee, right? I mean, I would just think
It's a valid point.
it seems a missed opportunity to hash through a few of these strategic goals when we all already had that time booked off.
I agree.
So I would put that on the record.
On
It's
the
on the
record.
recording, right? I mean,
It is.
I'm sorry, what was, I'm sorry.
Christie's
No,
wanted
I-
to make clear that.
I just would like to make a comment about the fact that the last meeting was canceled. And it seems like we're always trying to squeeze more time in to talk about the strategic plan and the goals. And since all of us already had that time on our calendar, it seemed, why not go ahead and use it? And those people who can attend, and those who cannot.
Well-
But we still have a chance to have a conversation about stuff that is getting postponed.
Well, the reason that it was postponed was so we could actually prepare this. This wasn't actually prepared in October. It wasn't completed for discussion. And this is an advisory committee of the city of Emeryville. So the purpose of this committee, when it's publicly noticed, is to comment on items and then provide advice and recommendations to the city council. So it's a publicly noticed meeting and there's laws associated with it. So if you wanted to get together to meet, but there's no, we have to meet on agendized items. If there's no items on the agenda, then that's why the meetings are typically canceled. if there are specific things the committee wants to meet on to place on the agenda, then that's, that would be a reason to meet. But as a committee of the city council, input, and there was no item to provide for the October meeting. So that's why I was asking.
Yeah. But we've been talking about the strategic plan for like since we started this committee. And the conversation always had insights from people they were
Right, we had had prior meetings where we got that input, and so the purpose was to take all that input. At some point, the input has to stop, and then we need to assemble it and then put it forward. So the input had proportionally stopped, and we hadn't completed the assembling of the information to bring it back. So, so the discussion happens, and then we discussed it, and then the input is assembled, and we can't keep, so now that we have something new, then there's something to discuss that's been sort of digested and put into a single format.
Well, I was thinking, right? Yeah.
We could talk informally and say, yes, and maybe other people would join us. It would be a forum.
Right.
Here we can just, so I agree. So let's keep that in mind.
You know what the 6 month, 1 year lease is there?
Yeah, what's his name?
White. He was actually born October 1st, he was born on the Wednesday.
And we
It was an unplanned cesarean, so she's still frustrated that she can't carry things.
It's just the draft. So we still.
And we've had,
Birth plans never go.
Right.
well, I know, we were very clear, I mean, we kind of, and we had all these things, like, okay, well, and she's like, I just want something, healthy baby, healthy mom.
Yeah, so I mean, I just feel like it was a missed opportunity.
Her parents in our house for the last.
Now we have now, and then we have
Grandma's last weekend, so we're in the grandma swap, so this, getting used to my mom for the, for the next month. He's actually pretty good. Last night, he was up to about 4 hours ago, so Katie takes the first wake up, which is usually between 12 and 2, and I get the morning, so I get the 4 to 6.
be coming to a 1 hour
Which is when I get up.
Let me tell you.
You could come. I know. I've never been up to my son's birthday at 5.
Yeah, so she has the late, which is great, so. And I pick up the morning, say this morning, hey, she slept in this morning. Like, I was up before him, around 5:30 or so, we finally wanted to mosey up, and, well, you're lucky to get 15. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, some cities.
I go back and really gotta know what, it's incredible. We were born in the wrong age. Well, I don't know, I feel age appropriate. I was there with the Beatles, that's pretty cool. I'd rather be there with the Beatles than be there with Facebook. I'm choosing to make the decision. So I have to tell you, I was sitting at home last a couple of months ago. Kids were at home. They were playing Beatles music. Television was on, and there was an announcement of the Chinese walking around. It was going around there. And then suddenly, and the president was talking about increasing troop levels in Asia.
Well, let's.
And back in 1966.
That's
Deja vu all over again.
Great.
Can we go to the next item?
It was fun.
We wanted to push off one item till Sabrina gets here.
Okay, well, I mean, I guess we can.
Why don't we start with one of our
Sure, why don't we
objectives?
go ahead and start.
Let's talk through one of the objectives. If they're ready,
Let's
yeah.
get rolling.
And if
Everybody's got
they're ready,
something.
I agree, I agree.
we'll jump in. We'll take a break.
I have a
Yes.
question. Are these the only 3 objectives? Is this what was
Well,
filtered?
So let me
let's-
explain.
Okay.
So this is based on, we had the strategy that you had looked at before, and then staff did a lot of research on other opportunities that we might have, as well as input that we've gotten from this committee, and also we reviewed it with senior staff, that is the other department heads that are involved in the implementation of economic development activities. And so this is laid out a little bit differently, but it's what it was the strategic goals are actually the same strategic goals that were in the original plan. And we've broken them down into 3 major objectives. So there's nothing that has been, in terms of the strategic goals, eliminated. The objectives are actually new, and it's just a way to sort of group the goals within sort of larger objectives. And so those 3 main objectives are to support economic and job growth, which is essentially attraction and expansion. Next is to strengthen the local tax base, and that's primarily retention. And then improve and invest in the Emeryville community, which we perceive more as a workforce development type activities. And within those main objectives, there are these goals that were carried over from the prior economic development strategy.
Boy, Michelle, this is such a much better organization of what we're trying to do here. I mean, you've done a really good job here, I think.
So the next one is the action items, and these are sort of the activities, the economic development activities that the city is going to be is doing now. Ones that are recommended for prioritization during this current fiscal year and the next fiscal year, and the ones that are under future are ones that we think should be pursued in the fiscal years after fiscal year 16. And the ongoing ones are pretty much things that are actually happening now. But particularly, I mean, we can certainly talk about them, but those are actually ongoing activities at this point. So it's really the 14, 15, and the future years that are the ones that that are really looking at sort of new priorities and new activities that might be undertaken in the near and medium term. So that's the intro.
I didn't want to interrupt you mid-thought. Do you want to finish that, or do you want us to just?
Well,
Okay, we're good, yeah.
How about if everybody, keep this in the back of your mind while we go through their presentation?
Yeah, that's true.
And we can come back and talk about this. Okay, you're on.
Give them a background. Here's something I think, been working on for
Over a year.
over a year, yeah. The Park Avenue District Committee saw an opportunity to brand our neighborhood. It's something that's been done in other neighborhoods historically for different reasons. Sometimes it's a transitioning neighborhood that wants to reaffirm its identity or even escape, a bad identity. Obviously, that doesn't apply to Park Avenue District, right? We're the golden child. And I think our neighborhood is special in that regard, in that we have a distinct identity for our neighborhood. And maybe this is something that can apply to other neighborhoods eventually over time in the city of Emeryville. So Park Avenue District is unique in that we have probably more history, I think, than the other neighborhoods. But I think we're kind of losing the grip on that. Slowly but surely, it stands of time. These old buildings, that were once something relevant, something important, are losing that. So we want to grab that. We want to reaffirm, the Park Avenue District's place in history. So, mission statement, more or less, for any planning assignment for a neighborhood. Anyone's neighborhood offers an opportunity to create a verbal and visual identity, reintroduce the community still pride the residents, and make the place more diverse in the city. So opportunities, you know, where can we apply this to? You have these lamp posts that have been vacant along the Park Avenue district, you know, since the identity was, or since the neighborhood was, since 2008, I think. So, you know, we have some historic plaques that are kind of scattered around the city. We have our Park Avenue Plaza, which is pretty faceless, honestly. There's just not much there. You know, just some concrete slabs. We've had a couple of events there, but I think there's potential there to do much more. These are some of the opportunities that some other neighborhoods, much like the Park Avenue, have been. You've been to the Jacqueline Square. They have historic markers. They indicate the history or relevance of different warehouses and buildings. It's an example of a neighborhood in Arizona that does window decals that merchants can use to participate and show their pride in their neighborhood. Gateways and arches, I think would be inexpensive, but a huge opportunity for the neighborhood. Street toppers, something to distinguish the borders, I guess, of our neighborhood. Here are some examples of some other logos and that other neighborhoods have implemented. One of the first things we thought of was, hey, what are the landmarks of our district? Town Hall, obviously, the Galco building, even the Pixar sign, not technically on Park Avenue, but and the New Bay Bridge, which I know we've actually driven down Park Avenue from San Pablo, but you know, if you catch it at the right time, at the right light, the right angle, it's just in perfect alignment with Park Avenue, and it's something that is an integrated part of our identity. Another thing is reconsidering the naming of the Park Avenue to incorporate the word Emeryville in there somewhere, to incorporate maybe even the word history or warehouse district, other things, something that other neighborhoods have done. This was kind of our first pass at it. A little rough, you know, we wanted to get something on paper. The reaction to this wasn't as strong as the next one I'm going to show you. It seemed to have some legs, something industrial with a girder in it, something that picks up on what I consider maybe the premier icon of our neighborhood, which is the lone palm right above City Hall. You can see it for miles around. Honors, you know, just the brick and also the historic architecture of Town Hall, and of course the black and white execution to show how that might be done in other implementations. So, street signs, the opportunity for banners. I think it's kind of limitless on what we could do with this if we committed to it. So I think our objectives for today are, for the project, the assignment is, you know, reinforce our neighborhood identity, celebrate our history, create a destination for merchants that we want to attract, some opportunities and ideas that I think we can follow through with our art walk. You know, we have the artist co-op in our neighborhood. You know, we have I don't know, Steve Lefkowitz, you know, the Pacific Landscape Gallery. We have all these places. I just talked to a new merchant along Park Avenue district that is opening a clothing store. So, and there's going to be art there. So, I think we can provide a tailwind for this. Others pretty much just the merchants. You know, we can partner with Off the Grid. Maybe they call it Off the Grid Park Avenue district. Help reaffirm that identity. Sherwin-Williams project. Obviously, they're going to have some deep pockets for helping us fortify this, and I think they can provide some financial resources there. What are our next steps? Get city buy-in, establish a funding source, and create a priority map for implementing this. So, those are ideas for the Park Avenue district.
Right, I'd say we've been discussing this quite a while in the advisory committee, and we love the idea internally in the advisory committee. And the piece we're missing, and the reason we're here today, is because we really want the input from the business community and economic development, and we want to help focus our efforts. So we love the branding idea, we love the logos, but we're curious from the business perspective, Are we focusing on bringing in new merchants? Are we focusing on highlighting current merchants? Are we, again, highlighting mostly the historic aspect of the district, or are we focusing on artists? We're trying to figure out what's, the way to implement this, and we're looking for input from different groups. So we've got the Park Avenue district in favor of this. We love the idea. And we kind of want some of the business acumen and the business experience. What would people like? Do you find this useful to promote your own businesses? And again, obviously right now we're looking at a pilot with the Park Avenue district, so it's not citywide, but maybe this is the sort of thing that could go wider down the line. But we have a really well-defined neighborhood right now that makes it easy to focus on this district. So yeah, how can the branding help both current businesses and attract new businesses?
Can you put the missions thing back up on the screen, please?
And just for clarity,
Yeah.
when you're saying can you define the boundaries of the district?
Yeah, that's very clearly established. We're not a map up there.
Well, no, I mean, so is it
Right.
Hollis, it's Park Avenue? or
Charlie can tell you
40th to,
exact streets.
It's east of Hollis, it's just the blocks between Park Avenue and 40th, all the way down to San Pablo. And then west of Hollis, it's basically down to 40th Street, railroad tracks. The north boundary is a little amorphous. It's like 45th Street, a little bit north of 45th Street. It also includes the Sherwin-Williams site.
But does Park Avenue go all the way to San Pablo
Yes.
district?
Yeah,
Yes.
it does not include the San Pablo frontage. It doesn't include the last block.
So it would include Pixar.
No, it does not include Pixar.
So it's the old buildings between the 40th and Park.
40th and Park, right, and then west of Hollis.
But I think you have to clearly differentiate Park Avenue District. When we went through that battle to establish it, we had specific ideas in mind about retaining the historical buildings and the flavor of the district. But when you're talking about signing the district, I think it would be a mistake not to take it all the way up to, this is not a zoning thing.
Right.
It's a marketing
All the way to
tool.
San Pablo?
So that would
For sure.
include City Hall and would include the Oaks, clearly historical.
Yeah, Nora's right.
So-
There is a defined boundary of the district, which is an overlay zone, which has zoning implications.
That's a whole different.
But this
set of
is
things.
more,
This is marketing.
this is more general.
Right.
We're not looking to be legalistic in terms of
Right.
exact streets or locations.
And I have to tell you, Rob, with the idea of the arch over Park Avenue, we paid a lot of money to a guy called Solomon to design the first Park Avenue plan. And it's almost identical to that arch. That was one of his pet projects.
Jeff,
Great
yeah.
idea.
You had a comment?
Well, I just had similar, I live in San Francisco and there are lots of neighborhoods and they don't tie to city definitions. They tie to the people who live and work there. And one thing that happens is when they become popular, the boundaries are expanded. And it's, like, I can't believe that you're saying that's,
Emeryville goes all the way down into West Oakland.
Well, I lived in Noe Valley when it was first becoming popular. They said it went down to Valencia. I'm like, what are you talking about? And now the mission has come the other way and taking it back. So I think you want to find people who buy into we're part of this neighborhood. Forget the boundaries,
We don't want to limit it. The more people who are interested and want to participate and brand themselves, we'd welcome that.
I mean, Pixar may not be in this defined area, but that would be something that people could understand. Like, our neighborhood is the place where that exists, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
So,
Totally agree.
Whether they like it or not.
Right.
It definitely wouldn't be a stretch, they're definitely in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
They're on Park Avenue, for God's
their
sake.
address
But
is
when we
1200.
originally created that, it was for zoning purposes,
Right.
and not branding purposes.
Correct.
So
This is a new tack. This is something
Yes,
new and different,
exactly.
and we can define it.
And we were kind of looking at Park Avenue being our 4th Street type of thing, but not any of the retailers, national retailers, just
Right.
small, locally serving type businesses.
Right, which
And,
is what everybody favors.
yeah, Right, so.
Everyone
I
believes
think
it's
you're
an
going in the right
opportunity.
direction.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I just, to play devil's advocate, because I only have a few more months to do that with you guys, so.
Oh, come on, Laura.
Then you become the real devil.
Halloween.
Then you're the real devil.
As long as the apartment doesn't sell, you can stay there.
And don't take the ideas to Oakland.
You got it. I will, yes, I will always be here in spirit. However, you know, Emeryville is such a little community, and it's a big little community in its presence, but physically very small. I'm wondering, and like I said, devil's advocate, historic Emeryville, not Park Avenue, like that way there's room for it to expand, because many of the things we want on Park Avenue we want in other places in the city, so just devil's advocate.
But the way I'd like to
Hold on,
just
Steve,
comment
hold
on that is, I think, that we have different neighborhoods. I think Park Avenue is a distinct district, and I think by branding it is very good, because we want it to be different. Because we have Bay Street. Bay Street's not historic. Matter of fact, basically the whole side of town I live on is not historic.
And we have the triangle.
And we have the triangle, so I think districting this is, no, I see what you're saying, but I think even as small as we have separate distinctions, and I think making this separate to pull in those unique shops that we want, like the 4th Street and everything, is what this would accomplish. So I definitely think we're going the right direction with that.
Kristen, yeah.
Well, I'm in the business in Emeryville now for 10 years, and I see this as a Yahoo, because you feel like there's no promotion of the businesses, the small ones. There's promotion of Pixar, Novartis, the biotech, but of all of those small businesses, so I see it as a golden opportunity that could help to get the word out, and I would add to that mission statement, not only place known to others, but place that people want to come to and shop or do other things. So any way that it can be all-inclusive and really, I think, highlight the businesses that have invested in Emeryville, but also want to attract some new ones. So I see it
And
as
if the
a
Park
big
Street
plus.
people succeed along
They
those
can.
lines, there could be spillover. Other neighborhoods might want to adopt the same template or rough and ready template like that. And that can't do any harm.
Well, that's what
I
we're
have
hoping for, so yes.
One question on if you're promoting more businesses on Park Ave, I think a challenge we have is parking. Right, I mean, it's a challenge right now, and if you're trying to get
No Park Ave.
more businesses, there needs to be a flow. If you want more people coming, branding it for everyone who's there is great, but I think what I'm hearing from you is how you, in essence, helping more stuff come.
Right.
I think, in general, we probably need to address how is parking going to be dealt with. if you want.
Originally, we were gonna be building a parking garage
Okay.
on that block, the next block over from where you live, that industrial warehouse, that was going to be a parking garage. That was kind of our vision when we created this, because we knew we had to have parking for the neighborhood.
It's an important consideration, I mean, it's one of those problems I think we kind of wish we had. I mean, we do have it in a sense because of, our business climate, not so much because of any retail presence, but on weekends, parking's not an issue right now when the bulk of the shopping I think can be done. So I think we cross that road when we get to it, and there are obviously measures for parking management in place, green zoning, et cetera, that I think would make an impact in that.
Well, let's say Stephen and then Kristen.
I agree with what Rob's saying about, and I think when the Sherman-Williams development happens, we're going to work in a lot of that, and I also think the EBOT study is also working on resolving that. I don't think parking should be our primary concern on every project that we do. I think we need to still let parking handle it and traffic handle itself, and we put in the tools such as public transit, such as parking that's unbundled, like in the Sherman-Williams project, to mitigate those things. But I think one thing I'd like to just add is, in reading through this, I don't particularly care for the term, I noticed you guys didn't use it, so that makes me happy, but I don't like the term warehouse, because I see the Park Avenue, mainly Emeryville, wasn't so much warehousing as it was industry, it was manufacturing, and I think coining it as a warehouse is trying to tag it as something that just sounds cute, but it isn't really what it is, and I think the things you guys have come up with, and I think right here, the Pearl District in Portland is a perfect example, just calling it the district of what it is. And I think the Park Avenue district is a perfectly good name, and what we need to do is just brand it and market it. So, and I like everything you guys have come up with.
And especially the branding with the city hall and the palm tree.
Definitely. Yeah.
But there is a residence, historic district.
Right.
There is a real residence there.
I think warehouse had come up initially, and we dropped that, so
Yeah.
that
Oh,
already been
okay.
dropped, as you saw, so.
Again, we're just looking to leverage other places that have done that to, create.
But there's the third
destination.
ward
But it's
in,
not important.
the
It's
third
not-
ward in Milwaukee has nothing to do with any of that stuff. It's a very neighborhood exactly.
It's a great
like this.
example.
Yeah.
Have you all priced out how much a pilot project would cost?
We haven't,
That's what you want to
right,
do.
that's, yeah, and we need a little, any guidance, I don't know if are there any programs in the city where anybody is branding neighborhoods or businesses or doing anything like that as of yet?
Well, the banners for, we
Yeah,
did the
the
banners
business
for
banners.
the, Peninsula, for the
Charlie.
American
Yeah.
America's Cup, so there's some costs that we gave them like $2,500 to do that.
I costed banners.
We
Remember
don't
what it
have,
was? I did cost out banners.
Let's let Charlie
Yeah,
speak.
Charlie has that.
we don't have this model in Emeryville yet. When we get back to talking about this, you'll see that one of the future actions we have on here is trying to help facilitate the creation of merchants associations, business improvement districts, things like that to bolster the neighborhood centers we have in Emeryville, Park Avenue, San Pablo Avenue, whatever, the other neighborhood centers that are identified in the general plan. And in other cities, the merchants get together, or the business owners, or whoever, they get together and they form their own little organizations, business improvement district, where they vote to tax themselves. And then they often take over the, street sweeping and the identification of the district banner. When you see Christmas decorations or holiday decorations that are put up in other cities, 99% of the time, that's not done by the city.
Right.
That's done by the local merchants.
Downtown Berkeley is like that, and
Right.
Telegraph Avenue in Berkeley is like
Right,
that.
so
Yeah.
we're sort of hoping that we can, in the future, go that way in Emeryville and get some, momentum behind that kind of a thing, and I think this would be a good pilot project to start something like that.
Good start.
All right, sorry, Jack.
Well, so we own a lot of buildings in one part of the town, and we've certainly thought about branding and so forth. So I think what Charlie says is true. I don't think the city is probably going to believe they can give money to everyone who wants to brand themselves. You may be early actors, but what you certainly could ask the city to help do is create, systems that you can take advantage of. So I happen to know that, for whatever reason, the city has all these street poles that have room for banners on them, but you don't have a policy to allow anyone to use it other than the city right now. Because we asked. And so that would be great just to get the city to agree to a policy so you could actually do it. Because, I live in San Francisco and they use their street poles all the time. I mean, there's some rules about it, but people can pay for those banners. They're sort of low on advertising content. They're more general advertising of the sort you're referring to. So
We have to be careful of First Amendment issues and make sure.
yeah,
it
so,
doesn't
so
just
there are
become a
rules,
public
but it
forum.
happens elsewhere. But so if the city could do they need to do that to then make it possible if you got someone to pay for them. And those things on top of the street signs, like I'm sure that isn't something they have approval to do, but if they could make that approval and then you could just get someone to pay for those, then that's sort of easy first steps, because you want pride of place, right? And then people who are working or living there start thinking about it as a place, and then maybe they're contributing to do the next steps. Because merchants associations, I mean, it's nice to have locations because they need customers to know how to come to where they are. And they can say, I'm at, the intersection of this and this, but a district helps customer go, well, I'll get there and then I'll find them there, so.
So,
Hold on, yeah, Krishna, then Ken, and then I think we're.
So I see it also as the opportunity right now too, because with the Sherwin-Williams project, that it's an opportune time to brand it so that the new businesses coming in there have a support system behind the Emeryville, this branding or whatever marketing that we want to do. So the more it could connect into that and then make the whole district, I see as an opportunity we could use. The second thing is I strongly disagree with Stephen on parking. Parking can't just figure it out by itself. For my business that turns clients over on an hourly basis, if people, studies have been done, if people have to do 2 or more circles around looking for a parking space, they often will drive away. So I see that parking has to be sorted out if you want small business that gets customers on a regular basis, they need to know for security that people are gonna have access to be able to park and shop and do business there.
All right, Ken.
Yeah, I'm right along with that. I don't agree we should waive on the parking because we did that years ago. We had identified places in the city where we should have parking, and we said, oh, let's just wait until it happened. Now that it's happened, now we can't get the parking. It's too expensive. So proper planning has that parking in advance. So if we're going to do that parking thing on Park Avenue over there, then we should get the merchants behind it, and then maybe they'll help pay for it since we don't bring it up.
Well, again, things that are sort of no cost to the city. They've thought a lot about, for a long time, parking meters, and that's a way to bias towards customers as opposed to full-time parkers. Now, there may be whole stresses in your neighborhood about that, but if you wanted to encourage short-time parking for customers, a parking meter program can help do that, because you change, the pricing encourages short visits and really makes it onerous for long visits.
And that's kind of what I was talking about. I'm not saying that parking needs to solve itself, but we need to look at different tools, and not putting in parking structure is a way, especially for people trying to do what these people are trying to do, to figure out parking. They need to brand the neighborhood. We as a city need to figure out the parking, and I don't agree that a parking structure is the answer. I think managing the parking we have, time parking, metered parking, whatever it is the way to go with that. If parking is an issue, yes, but it's not for them to resolve in order to move this project forward.
But what are your next steps to move the project?
Well, I guess there's a couple things.
Right,
Right, the funding is a big one, so I don't know, I mean, we can work with the city, obviously, on allowing use of the banner poles. We're not exactly sure it looks like you're going in the direction of maybe having the merchants associations or the business improvement districts, but in the meantime, do you know if there is a way, I mean, are merchants interested in contributing to this, or should we focus on smaller things up front where it's just stickers now and logos, or is there a way we can attract any funding for this? That's where we don't exactly have the expertise at the moment.
Well, first of all, I say come up with the concept, the whole concept. Come up with your logo, the idea, the name, and then do what you're doing, the banners, the sign toppers, and start hitting things incrementally. First of all, we have to come up with a consolidated idea. This is the brand, this is what it's going to look like. So once that's done, then you can start proposing those stickers, number decals, whatever your business association. The problem I see is, and I may not know the neighborhood that well, but I don't see the business district is that big yet that can actually fund and support that. So I think we need to if we can get the neighborhood identified and start creating a buzz and excitement, and then tag on with the Sherman-Williams development to start moving these processes forward. And then maybe look for donations to do the small starts.
Big picture, the gateway and, a website, yeah, those are down the road, I think that building the groundswell of support for this, by tackling some of the deeper aspects of this.
Well, if you had a basic program and you said our first phase would be putting these 10 signs out and putting the little leaders over the street signs, or whatever you thought was right, and it's roughly going to cost $25,000, and then you went and there aren't a lot of businesses, but you went and pitched it to the businesses and got a couple grand from each one, then you start, you say, look, people are putting their money where their mouth is, they have a vested interest here. It's going to be hard to just have an external party pay for the whole thing as a favor, I would guess.
Actually, there may be more businesses than people realize in the Park Avenue district. It's just they're not retail, so you don't just walk in and buy something. But there's lots of little businesses that are kind of
I'm thinking more the
down there.
people who care about customers, but they still may pay for it.
Right. You might also consider approaching the developers of the Sherman-Williams site. See if you can hit them up for,
I think it would benefit their project.
Right, exactly. So
Sherman-Williams.
I was going to say, what about some of the
All the
others?
property owners in the public, in the historic district, in the Park Avenue district, would benefit from this kind of branding, because immediately when you say, oh, I live in the historic district, or I live in the Park Avenue, I shop in the Park Avenue district, it's a clear, it's a target, and that improves the property value, and that's another way you might want to approach it.
I mean, you're so
Not just
lucky by
retail.
it's being called Park Avenue,
It's a nice name, Monopoly, go
And
away.
don't exclude the card club, because they got big bucks.
Back to approaching Sherman-Williams, which is a good idea, by the way.
all kinds of folks are pitching all kinds of things to those developers. They've become very adept at listening carefully, but not necessarily following through. So if you approach them, make sure that you pitch hard and you keep paying attention at the various subsequent steps.
Well, and if they have something substantive as a design concept, then as a planning commission, we could ask that that be part of
Furthermore,
what they do.
this would be enlightened altruism on their part, because it will help their development a lot. If they can tie it to something like a clearly defined historic district.
We
So
had
it could work
discussed
both
that.
ways.
We want to offer something to them to make it appealing to them to want to adopt it, so that it helps them with business and the neighborhood. So we want it as a win-win in that sort of
Are
case.
you all gonna take your presentation to the Public Art Committee, to the Public Works Committee? Because you're gonna be using public right of way. The more you disseminate information about this, the more I think you're gonna pick up adherence to it.
Everyone?
Steven's right though, I mean, you have to wrap your heads around, like, here's the,
Phase
in
one.
toto, here's what we'd like to do, and then you need a budget. And then phase it, you know, so you guys need to get down to sort of brass tacks, going around and asking people until you know exactly what the ask is.
That's
They'll
right.
get tired of you before you even ask the real ask, so.
Got it. So
And I would say go ideal and then
Well,
you can
go
do
a big
minimal.
picture and then
what
parse
can
it
you
out,
do?
but yeah.
You know,
Sure.
best case, you know,
Right,
and
we
then
won't
if we.
exclude bigger items, but have it all broken down so people can actually see every little level and what the different things are you can do.
And you've done a lot of thought about phasing it in anyway. It's ultimately
Right.
starting to identify the area, so you need to really put that word out there first and step out.
And I would say, think about how that also promotes small. If you're gonna be asking people up for money, they're all gonna want to,
What do you
I
get
included
for
my,
it?
what am I
Right.
gonna get for this?
Right.
That'd be my first question.
Whether it's
Um,
recognition
And how that goes for those of us who've been here for a long time, is all the money go, you know, all the emphasis gonna be on the new, or would it still be on how that can be incorporated, and how it helps cohesively, both new and the old businesses.
So in the interest of time, I
Yes.
think we're gonna close this one down, but thank you
Great
guys so
idea.
much.
Thank you very much.
We want to step back to the, yeah, Sabrina. Where's Sabrina talking about?
Well,
Informational items, Sabrina, the infrastructure financing district. We're holding that for you.
Oh, okay.
Did you want to talk on that?
Well, I don't know what the intention was, but.
Oh, okay. Well, let me-
You weren't gonna present the details of it?
no, I wasn't gonna go over the details of it. So the infrastructure, enhanced infrastructure financing district, information is the reason why your packet is so enormous. I included the full text of the bill for people who want to see it, as well as some additional analysis that was done by the League of California Cities and a couple of different articles about it. And so this is recently passed legislation. As soon as redevelopment was eliminated, a lot of people immediately turned to this legislation, which is existing. Actually, it was just recently amended as sort of a concept of, you know, redevelopment light, that it would give us an opportunity to re-access tax increment financing to finance in a similar manner to which redevelopment did to finance certain projects. And so there were some alterations to the existing IFD legislation. They lowered the threshold for approval. They slightly expanded the types of projects that could be funded by an IFD. And so this is included, but there are a couple of reasons why it's not exactly appropriate for Emeryville at this time. Do you want me to go through them, or do you?
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of give a little context to this. I think that the question had come up maybe in this committee, I wasn't here, but there was some, seeing that the governor had signed this and wanting to know more about what this is, and this is a tool for Emeryville. And I will kind of give you my take on it and a little bit of context attached to it. So IFDs have been around forever. I think they've only actually been used, I believe it's once. I think it's in West Sacramento, for a variety of very unique reasons why it worked there. This last two legislative sessions, there have been a lot of attempts by various members in the legislature to put forward, some kind of economic development or redevelopment with a little R tool in Sacramento in a post-RDA world. And the governor has he been very, very clear about a lot of those kind of redevelopment 3.0 bills that have gone to him. He has vetoed every single one of them. And he's been totally transparent that he is not going to do anything anytime soon. There was some hope. There was a Darrell Steinberg bill that had some cleanup in it that we thought maybe that one might go through because it was coming from the legislative leadership, and there were some pieces in there that we thought the governor might like. He vetoed it, as expected. In his January budget message last year, he put forward this, what is called enhanced IFD, as part of his budget proposal, and ultimately, there were a couple of little bills that played around with it, and ultimately this is the one that got adopted, and he signed it. So my personal take on it is that, and this was starting from the moment that he put it into his budget message in January, is that this was to give himself a little bit of breathing room in some ways, where he can turn to everybody who's breathing down his neck right now and say, well, look, I gave you this tool. You guys have this tool. So just, deal with that. Let's go through the dissolution process and let the dust settle. And in the meantime, you have this tool. This tool really does very, 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 very little. And specifically for Emeryville, it does even less.
Was that 3 berries or 4 berries?
That's right. My message to our lobbyists in Sacramento when this came out in some cities, the league was, expressing some interest in it, and was that I did not think that it was in our best interest to latch onto this and have this be something that the governor thought that the city of Emeryville supported as a post-redevelopment tool to give them any breathing room. I don't think that benefits us. If there's going to be a new redevelopment 3.0 or 3.5, whatever you want to call it, City of Emeryville, I think, is going to be best positioned to be sitting at the table, not with some of these other cities here, but with what I call the Big Ten, which are the Oaklands and the Los Angeles and the San Diegos, right? Which is, you might say, oh yeah, but why would they want to sit at the table with us? Well, we're uniquely positioned, I think, to actually to insert ourselves into that conversation. So our lobbyist is extremely aware of that and agrees with us that this is a whole lot of nothing. It's really mealy, and there's a big piece in here that you should be aware that says you cannot have an IFD if you have pending litigation with the state of California. We have pending litigation with the state of California. It also, it doesn't really, Michelle touched on a few of the specifics. I think for us at the staff level, we, are looking at everything that's out there. Maybe, there is a unique circumstance once we've settled our litigation where we could do something like this. But we're trying to get creative with other tools that might be out there, looking at everything, maybe some things that weren't on the table before, and trying to think about them a little differently. But I just don't want us to think this is a cure-all, replaces really anything, and that we should let the governor off the hook in any way.
Sabrina?
If that didn't
Yeah,
express
that's
some
very
strong feelings.
Was there any wiggle room at all in this this particular structure for affordable housing, or did you see anything?
I don't believe it has anything in there. I think
Because we know that the governor is against set-asides for affordable housing, and you presume there wasn't any wiggle room.
Not that I see in this particular tool.
That's high on my agenda, and that just reinforces what I thought was going on.
Well, it's one of the things you can fund with it, but you're saying it's gonna be difficult to do them anyhow, so.
Okay.
And the affordable housing advocates are, I think that there was a feeling that that piece of redevelopment, if there's going to be a redevelopment 3.0, that is the one that might get enacted first. If there's going to be, so that there's some dollars set aside. We'll see. I think Sacramento, the mayor and I went up there last spring, and met with the governor's office, met with Steinberg's office, having a new tool was one of our 3 talking. It was Emeryville, it was, the mayor wanted to talk about early childhood education, and then it was giving the city of Emeryville a new tool for affordable housing really, and economic development. We met with Claudia Capio, who is very close with the governor, used to be our redevelopment director here. And she indicated to us that nothing was going to happen until after November 4th.
Well, she's in charge of housing.
And she just got promoted to, officially to be in charge of HCD. She was an acting head of HCD, and she just got promoted to that. So she, I think the message to us was just let's wait until after November, and there may be something that, and she's very, very aware of our needs. And our lobbyist actually met with her, I believe, on Monday. So
Oh, it's November 5th, what are we doing?
there we go, I know, we've got 12 hours.
We're ready.
So anyways, so that's the IFDs. I know you guys had some questions about it. Feel free to peruse it. I think we're gonna go to the finance committee as well and talk a little bit about it. So yeah.
Thanks, Sabrina.
Sure.
So is this an action item we're supposed to do
No, it's
something?
information.
Just an information?
Okay, can we ask questions?
Yes.
No.
Except Jeff.
Yeah, so that being the analysis, which I'm not as experienced, but I took it the same way, other than waiting for something that may never happen, what's the next 1-2 year approach that the city has, if at all now, or is that going to be considered soon, or what are next steps there besides hoping the governor changes his mind?
Yeah, no, and I don't, the only thing that I heard in all of his veto messages, he gave a little opening on the Steinberg message saying that he might be willing to work on something next year, which was kind of a huge step for him, but it's not gonna come from him. It's not gonna come from his office. It may come from, again, Emeryville, again, making sure that we're sitting at the table, whether it's through Claudia, which we're making it very clear, and she knows about what we're doing, but it's also, frankly, working with the other cities. And so that's something at the staff level that we've talked about. How do we, not knowing, if anybody's actually, put together any kind of coalition, which I don't think they have. I think that that's the logical place for us to go.
And then other than that, it is figure it out for ourselves rather than wait, like, there was the transfer tax.
Right.
Is that to go forward thinking like we gotta make it happen on our own as opposed to wait for the big bold strokes?
Well, I think you can do the two things in parallel too,
Right.
right? I think what the city can do on their own, a great example is the impact fees that the council adopted. So we now at least have some dollars coming in for affordable housing, but it's drips and drabs, right? But it's better than nothing. So you don't want to sit and do nothing waiting for the big, tool to come down. So I think it's, to answer that, I think my personal perspective, you gotta do both.
Well, so if we are sort of an advisory body to the council, I for one would recommend to this group that we say strongly that the council should consider independent action, parallel path with bigger, collaborative action, rather than just wait for a better day that may not come.
Good point.
I would say, I go to all the ADAG meetings, and they're working on this. Every city has the same problem with affordable housing. Emeryville has been designated a priority development area, so I don't know what that means as far as receiving money and funds. But we need to hook up with that, because that's what's going on immediately around us.
Is that a motion, Jeff?
If it is,
Yeah,
I
I heard it as a
second.
motion, yeah, exactly.
Did you second it?
Sure, I'll second it, or we'll second it.
Yeah, okay, together.
Do you want?
I heard that as a
restate
motion.
It's a
Yeah.
gentle one.
Can you restate your gentle motion?
That the Economic Development Committee strongly urges the council to look at any and all possibilities for unilateral action while working on greater collaborative coalitions to influence Sacramento, but not just wait for the latter to accomplish some of the key things on the agenda, which I won't go into, but the city has, you know, that affordable housing is one, and there's a whole list of things.
Okay. Any, all right, well, we had a second.
A second, letting Stephen.
Did
I
you
just
have
have a question that can wait.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
So Sabrina, is there, I mean, I know a lot has gone through the state and he's rejected a lot. Is there nothing that has the strength or support of the cities that can force upon their own legislators to override his veto? And what does that take? It seems like once it's vetoed, it's dead.
Right now, the governor is fairly powerful.
Steve,
Yeah.
Steve, don't ask
You
that
saw what
question.
happened yesterday, so, you know.
Pretty powerful, but I think, but to your question, there is new leadership in Sacramento. I think we'll, you know, see what happens.
And he wants to push the tunnel and the train.
Well,
down.
I, you know, I would
There'll be
say
some-
he has an agenda that is about economic development in the state. It's just very global. Train, water. I mean, he spent his own money, you know, his own campaign money on that. And those are important for the state. They're just, you know, things that we've taken for granted in the past. And it's hard to say that's really going to directly benefit Emeryville until there's no water. But, you know, so he is taking steps. And the rainy day fund makes the state more healthy and stable, where you have a problem of being robust.
More like Emeryville.
Yes, exactly.
Until we lost redevelopment.
But
No, I think
his take on
Stable
this
at a
is
lower
very,
cost.
he is a bee in the bonnet kind of guy, and if it's not a, yeah, I mean, to your point, if it's not a key issue, and what's gonna happen in the next 4 years?
Fight on both the train and the tunnel.
You know, the state's doing reasonably well along the coast.
Underwater trains here.
You know, the Central Valley may be suffering, hence, where's that train?
Yeah, they're gonna build a train, right?
Okay,
So
But
Nowhere to
but it's-
nowhere.
I gave you a train.
They'll have some construction work in the meantime.
He's in legacy mode, right? His
Yeah,
dad got the
Yeah.
aqueduct, right? So he's looking for his.
Well, he said, you know, these are long-term things. You start out as mayor, you know, 30 years ago, and you come back, and maybe you can finish your job.
Right.
It's like a legacy thing, I swear.
All right. Thanks, Sabrina.
Sure.
Is it possible that we could continue our discussion of the economic development plan to the next meeting? Because this deserves a
Full
real
meeting.
focus.
Yes.
And we can just
I've
focus
got to
on
go
that
out
on
to
the
Yeah,
next
me too.
meeting?
Can I just say that, yes, I think that's a good idea. We have got this scheduled, I believe, for a study session at the city council on December 16th. So there is another meeting of this committee before that.
Good.
So we can talk about it
And
at your December meeting.
Anybody that didn't get to come to the EBOT study session here, there's one this weekend in Westover, right?
There is, And should we make our next meeting an hour and a half?
Let's stick with that. Let's just not have anything else on the
Nothing else
agenda.
on the agenda.
Nothing else on the
Just
agenda.
nothing else
Okay.
on the agenda. I think we can get to it.
Just check.
And everyone remember the ongoing things we're really not debating unless you come in with the we have to cross it off and we'll talk about it for like 30 seconds. But ongoing is ongoing. We're really looking at future stuff for this year, next year, and out the way out.
Well, I think it's worthy that this committee think about whether there's any way it could support the ongoing efforts. And maybe if someone has an idea, because they all sound good, but I start thinking, well, who's actually doing it?
Well, I do want some updates.
Is Michelle doing all of it? Well, that's exactly.
That's what our boss is saying.
Without help,
I think it's some.
So I was gonna volunteer Bob on one or two of them, you know? I don't know, so that's-
Well, I mean, you know, that's what we do have a contract with the chamber to actually help implement.
Yeah, there we go, so we don't
Yeah.
have to volunteer, you can
Yeah,
just tell
it's
them.
all right, exactly. So why-
Earned your money.
Any staff comments? Committee member comments? Sorry for interrupting, but I'd like to announce the birth of Wyatt Emerson Clark on October 1st. The little boy is happy, and we're starting to get a decent amount of sleep. So
How much did he weigh?
he weighed 7 pounds 4 ounces,
Perfect.
19.5 inches long. So he's now 9 something already and 22 inches. So he's on his growth path.
That's great. Like him.
Fantastic.
Did you have one too long?
I have one quick question. So there are a couple of things on here that were already completed, and the one that jumps to mind is the sort of one-stop shop idea for building and planning. So in go, it's not on here anymore because it's done. But in looking at some of these goals, to think about evaluating some of the things that are done and seeing how they're working, seems like a valuable thing to at least consider.
Actually, it's still on here because we think
Okay.
there's more that we can do.
Good.
Great, but just
Well,
to,
yes, I-
just to, you know, when something's done, to
I was
kind of
gonna recommend
revisit,
something.
like,
We
is it
did
working
so.
the way we envisioned
Right.
it to work? Could we tweak it to make it better? You know, those kinds of
Yeah.
things.
Council, we want to do.
We're getting it done. It's continues to be extremely important to a tremendous number of people.
Good, good.
What's that? Oh, we're trying to improve it.
Very
We're
good.
still having questions asked about a design that was approved a long time ago, like why are the trees here? It's because it's in the approved design. It's been there for
Right.
2 years. So.
Between 9th Street and South Street.
Oh,
Green-
But we're trying. Believe me, I can't wait to be done
with this, we're gonna
Can't wait
adjourn
to be done with it.
How do you know when
November
you-
5th, 2014.
Little
Emeryville
anarchistic
Economic
today.
Development